Well, hey everybody. I know that, for some of us, it might get kind of confusing, right? We've been learning over the last couple of weeks about, the Old Testament, right? We've been talking about wisdom, and we've been talking about all these other characters. And one of the things that I think can kind of get confusing sometimes, and that doesn't always make sense to us, is why is it that we learn about stories in the Bible that don't have something to do with Jesus, right? Like, a lot of times our stories, we'll talk about David, or we'll talk about, today's story is about Abraham. And one of the things that I wanted to explain is that actually these stories all have to do with Jesus, right? All of these stories that are in the Old Testament, so the Old Testament is the first part of the Bible, right? It's all this first part of the Bible. It all is pointing to Jesus. And so when we're learning about Abraham, or when we're learning about Moses or somebody like that, I want you to know that we're learning stories that are all leading up to us being able to be introduced to Jesus in the Bible. And so today's story is about Abraham. I'm going to teach you a story about Abraham where he had to trust God. And so as we're making decisions, as we're thinking about who Jesus is, I want you to know that Jesus wants for us to make wise choices. He also wants for us to love him so much that we can know that we can always trust him. We can always trust him. We can make the wise choice because God wants us to do that. We can make the wise choice because God wants for us to do that. And so today's story is about this guy, Abraham. Now, Abraham is an interesting character. You see, when we see him first in our story today, he's an old man. He's an old man. Matter of fact, he's really old. Like, he's 75, 80 years old. No offense if you're that old. But he's old. And his wife, she's really old. But God does something interesting. You see, God actually speaks to Abraham. And he tells him, hey, so I know that you've lived like your whole life and you've got everything figured out. You know where like the video game store is. Abraham didn't have a video game store. I'm just kidding. But I know that you figured everything out in your life, but I want you to take all of your stuff. I want you to take your wife. I want you to take all of your friends, all the people who you know, and I want you to move really far away. Now, boys and girls, I don't just mean like he wanted them to move like, down the street. The journey for Abraham to take his family and all of his stuff all the way to this new place that God wanted them to go took over 2 years for them to walk and ride donkeys to get to. So like, they weren't taking a little trip, right? And remember, they didn't have cars, they didn't have airplanes, they didn't have any of that back then. They had to rely completely on walking, on riding donkeys. And it was a big operation. Abraham had all sorts of servants, he had people who worked for him. He had to make sure that all of them could get their families so that they could travel to this new place. It was a whole big thing, and Abraham had every reason, okay? He had every reason to say, absolutely not, God. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to travel all the way, take several years to get there. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. I trust you. I love you. But no, I'm just not thinking that I'm going to do that. But that's not what he did, right? And I'm going to read you in the Bible. I'm going to read to you what he actually said. And here's what it says in Genesis chapter 12. So if you have a Bible, if you have a grown-up that's with you that can help you, we're in Genesis chapter 12. And here's what God did. Now the Lord said to Abraham, "Go from your country and your family and your father's and take your family and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the ones who curse you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Right? So I told you, like, God told him, like, go do this thing. Go far away. What do you think he did? Would you have just listened if you heard God say that to you? Would you have just, like, said, okay, like, I'll go do that? Would you? I think I'd be really scared to do that. Let's see what Abraham did. So Abraham went, as the Lord had told him, and his family went with him. Abraham was 75 years old when he departed. And Abraham took his wife Sarah and his brother's son Lot and all the possessions they had gathered and the persons who they had as servants in their home. And they went to Canaan. And Canaan took over 2 years for them to get to. Now, I don't think that you've probably ever had to do something where, you had to completely go somewhere where you had to walk for 2 years to get to it, right? Like, we don't necessarily have decisions like that. But I think that all of us have decisions we have to make that sometimes we know is going to potentially cost us something. It's going to be hard for us to do. And it's going to be even harder if we have to trust God with it. But here's the truth, right? We know that Jesus is God, and Jesus wants us to trust him even when it's hard. So when we're making decisions, when we're trying to make wise decisions, we need to know that we need to pray and ask God to give us the wisdom to make the right choice. And the right choice is always following what God wants us to do. I hope that this story has encouraged you. I want you to have your grown-ups, whoever are with you, to follow us on Facebook. You can follow our Facebook group, Paradise Kids. You can also follow the church's Facebook page if you haven't already. We do regular updates about children's ministry there. And follow us on YouTube. YouTube is one of the best places to be able to get all of our videos. And of course, always go to the website. You can go to paradisechurch.org/paradise-kids to see all of the information that you could ever possibly want about everything that has to do with children's ministry. We are meeting in person right now in all of our children's spaces, and so we would love for you to be able to be a part of that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Email me at todd@paradisechurch.org. I would love to be able to talk with you. Hey guys, I'm going to see you next week, and we're going to tell some more unbelievable stories about how we can make the wise choice. Bye.